guys, my name is Leffy Flower. I'm back again with another video. Before I start the video, I just want to say there's tornado warning, so it might be a bit noisy outside because of that. There's also everybody in the house, so at the moment it's very noisy. So let's get into it. So I'm back with another video that I don't know if I would classify of sociology or psychology. So let's say it's social psychology because it's a bit of both, right? And this is like one of my favorite topics, social psychology, because it's what I study, is the field that I'm into, so it should be really interesting. But enough about me, let's get into the thick of it.
To the thick of it! Oh.
I want to talk about undeserved fame, more specifically undeserved success through fame, because fame is one of the most explicit ways to measure success. There is this phenomenon that I have gotten to recognize over the years after consuming pop culture for a little bit more than a decade, and it's the they don't deserve the fame / success they got phenomenon. The majority of the undeserving are public figures, more specifically celebrities, because you can actually be rich, successful without being a celebrity or being famous. But let's start by just identifying who can we put in the undeserving categories and what categories there is. The undeserving. Exhibit A, the TikToker epidemic. During the pandemic, while we were all in lockdown, TikTok rose in popularity since we were all bored, going mental, and needed to be entertained. So rose to fame Charli D'Amelio, Dixie D'Amelio, Addison Rae, Bella Poarch, to name a few. Gaining popularity by posting videos of trendy dances or aesthetic content in the form of short videos. Labeled undeserving because they do what is considered to be the bare minimum or boring, empty content, but still gain a massive amount of following on the platform. And in the span of a few months, they became celebrities, even getting invited to awards shows and the Met Gala. The D'Amelio will even have their own show on Disney. Now, these young adults are living a lavish life in Hollywood, creating relatively original content, mainly getting their money from brand deals. With their new status, many of them have tried to get into singing, into acting, but not necessarily because they're talented. It's just because now they have the connections necessary and the fame necessary to get there, and they already have a public. A lot of people criticize this because, like I said, they're not necessarily good, they just have the connections. So then they're undeserving of even more because they're also going for singing careers and taking the spot of other people who are actually talented but just don't have the same amount of fame or privilege as they do. Most of them also became influencers, which leads us to our next exhibit. Exhibit B, the influencers. So before TikTok was a thing, there was Instagram, and it was the app where you needed to be on. In the same wavelength as TikTok, many people who had a curated feed and were standardly pretty could build a following and become Instagram famous or influencers, labeled as undeserving because their work consists in looking pretty in clothes, promoting brands, taking selfies, talking about their lives, being famous for being famous. All of these activities that require little effort in contrast to regular jobs that normal people have. Instagram is not the origin of influencers. It's actually celebrities that used to be influencers, but actually the founding mothers of the influencers as we know them now are Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton. But there we are crossing two different categories, which are also the Nepo babies, which cue our next exhibit. Exhibit C, the Nepo babies. If you don't know who the Nepo babies are at this point, are you living under a rock? Asking you important questions, vital questions for your life. The Nepo babies are the children of the famous and rich of Hollywood. Here you can see some of the faces of these Nepo babies. A lot of Nepo babies are also deemed not deserving of their success and fame due to their advantage. They already have the connections to be in the spotlight. Like the TikTokers, they also can get extremely privileged opportunities because of their status. But the difference is that they were born into the network of the successful people. Their family have already done all the hard work. So for them, a foot is already in the industry. Like the TikTokers or influencers, they also turn into acting or singing careers, but don't necessarily have the talent for it, just the privilege and the means and the connections to get into the industry. That's very frustrating once again, because a lot of people say that they are taking the spots that actually talented people should have, but just because they don't have the same level of fame or parents, they don't have the same connections, they don't get there. The thing is, not all Nepo babies are hated, but there's not like a consensus as to which Nepo baby is actually talented or which one doesn't deserve their fame. There's like even BuzzFeed like polls about this. So if you want to go vote of who deserves their fame or not, you're welcome to. Go have fun. I did it. It was, I don't know, it's a bit weird because there's no fixed standard as to what makes a good Nepo baby and what doesn't. It seems like it's either like you're talented, but if you're not that talented, if you're charming enough and if you like are funny enough and liked by the public for some reason, then you're good. So it really depends. Exhibit D, the fangirls. It's not so much the fangirls itself, but more who the girls are a fan of. In our patriarchal dominated society, femininity is undermined, mocked, and ridiculed. I want to bring to the table two main examples of famous people being ruthlessly scrutinized by the press and the public for their undeserving fame and their lack of talent. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift. These two talented artists were throughout the beginning of their career and even now bullied by the press and the public because of their target demographic, teenage girls. So because we live in a world where femininity is diminished and where teenage girls don't have taste or what they like or is not important or seen as deserving to be liked or important for the rest of the society, by proxy, the person who they're fan of or the things that they like are stupid or just not good enough or talentless. But that's just not true. And even after the multiple awards for both of these two talented singers, it wasn't until recently that bullying this type of artists became wrong. There was a shift in our society that, in my opinion, was due to feminism. And because as a society, we're accepting hyper-femininity more and more and it's becoming trendy. But this is just in the last few 2-3 years, and now we can see that Taylor Swift actually deserved her fame and that Taylor Swift was actually good. There are many other celebs that I can put here as an example who are undermined or mocked and ridiculed because their target audience is teenage girls. But let's move on. First impressions. At first, I too agreed that these different categories of people were undeserving of their fame. In the case of the TikTokers, it was ridiculous that these teenagers who were standardly pretty and were making 15 seconds videos of them dancing would gain this amount of popularity. It naturally doesn't make sense that this little amount of effort would lead to this amount of success. But then this interview came to exist.
That sounds like I think bordering on abusive.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize that until I got to the States that I was going through that. To me, it was normal. And yeah, it was.
So when I was watching this interview, I was also reading the comments as I commonly do. And at the same time, I see all these comments saying like, oh, she deserves her fame. She deserves to be famous. Out of all the TikTok famous people, she's the one who deserves it. She has had a rough childhood. And then something clicked for me. The reason as to why Bella Poarch was now deserving of her fame without being hated on for doing the bare minimum or the same work as these other kids is because she had had a hard life. So basically, the logic of this is that in order to deserve success, you either have to work hard or have a hard life for like it to balance it out. And the one that are privileged either don't deserve it, or because they had it easy, they deserve it less because they didn't suffer. So what's the psychology in this? It's super interesting actually. This phenomenon of thinking that people get what they deserve is called the just world fallacy. It's a bias basically. The just world theory posits that when people do fall victim to misfortune, others tend to look for things that might explain their circumstances. In other words, people tend to look for something or someone to blame for unfortunate event. So you get what you deserve. Following this logic, the hypothesis is that when someone is successful, it must be because they did good things, or in this case, sacrificed a lot to get to the top. Bella Poarch is a good example. Another example that I want to bring is Paris Hilton, who after the release of her documentary gained respect because she had had trauma in her childhood. Even though prior to this, she had always been labeled as a Nepo baby who just got famous because she was already rich, she was undeserving of her fame, just another bimbo. The reason as to why we get frustrated at the undeserving for their fame is because when we notice that a lot of these people who are famous because they either got very lucky or because they put little effort or because they already had a foot in the industry, we think in our brain that's not fair. They didn't do the work that they had to do to get there. On the opposite end, we also get frustrated because when we notice that the people who have put an effort don't gain as much as others who again just happen to be lucky or born into privilege, it just creates a contradiction in our brains. And all of this disrupt this bias that the world is a just place when in reality it's just not. Most killers haven't been caught, and a lot of successful people are also doing bad things or did bad things to get in their positions, and we just don't know it. We live in a world that, unfortunately for us, is not fair. That's the reality of it. A world that is absolutely not regulated by if you made efforts or not. And we as humans fall victims that the world is just, and that people who make efforts or have sacrificed a lot should be successful when in fact it is not like that. The right and the wrong. What is dangerous with this logic is that we bully another human being because of the position they are in. Realistically, if we had the same privileges, we would also use them. What needs to be understood is that every individual, rich or poor, deserves their success and happiness regardless of their level of privilege in the world or their status. No one deserves it more. It doesn't make sense to get angry at these people who at the end of the day are just human beings that are probably trying to make it also in this world just like me or like any other human being in other social classes. So don't hate the player, hate the game. And I want to come back with TikTok and explain why it became so popular and why these people became so popular so fast. It's basically explained because TikTok is a fairly new app on the market. If we compare it to, let's say, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook that have been in the market for a few years now, even like almost a decade, it's way more new. It's been there since I think 2019. It's also among the most popular platforms for social media marketing because it can help you increase your followers quickly. One of the reasons TikTok is so popular is because it's easier to communicate a specific message to a niche target audience through a video rather than lengthy captions. Most of these people who became TikTok famous didn't even think they would become famous. It just happened because the algorithm made it happen and because they were just there at the right moment, at the right time. My point being that the first to create content are more likely to build a following on a new app that is growing, which was the case of TikTok. And we can't really get mad at successful people who got their fame by being just lucky. At the same time, the anger and jealousy that we feel is valid. In a perfect world, everyone should equally have the same opportunity. We should be angry because some people don't do as many efforts but still get more success than some people who put all their blood, sweat, and tears into their careers. And yes, that is a very, very good reason to be frustrated at the world, not the people. And yes, the world is constructed for white, rich men to be successful, making minorities lose representation in the media. And it's very sad that still to this day, are still asking for more diversity in our social medias. Our social media is more kind to the standardly pretty people, and those standards are based on physical traits that come from white people. Because we live in a society that is post-colonial. So the people who still dominate the world are the white people. And so they make the standard what is beautiful, what is purchasable, what is trendy. And so the algorithm also catches that. It was very smart knowing who they wanted to sell their product to, which is American consumers and worldwide consumers who are very inclined to American culture. And that we should be angry at. Because the system is made that way. So we should be angry at the system and try to dismantle it so we can have opportunities. Me as a POC, I get very frustrated to see all these standardly pretty girls. I feel like I'm standardly pretty for the color of skin that I am, or my standards, yet I'm not probably never gonna have the level of fame that they have, and I'm probably just not there at the right time, at the right moment also. But it's not really Charlie D'Amelio or Dixie D'Amelio's fault or Paris Hilton's fault that they are in the position that they're in. We shouldn't be thinking that because you suffered, you deserve more. That's ridiculous to put someone in that position. It's like if you make more efforts, yes, you should make efforts regardless of if you are privileged or not. That's just how it should be, because it's a good trait to have. The fact that everybody deserves success no matter who you are, and compensating for it by bullying and by putting down the undeserving doesn't bring balance, but instead perpetuates an inequality, but also it perpetuates a toxic system. Why should we hate on these people? They're not the one who made the rules for most of them. So this is the end of the video. In conclusion, I think we just have to reflect as to why we think some people are successful. And I feel like success is a double-edged sword, because a lot of people who are at first underrated, and then like their fans are like, you're so underrated, nah. The public is like, you're so underrated. And then when they reach that level of fame that everybody wanted them to have, they get hated on. So someone, even the people who work for it, who make an effort, who are always there, when they get on top, they get bullied because we are jealous. And to me, that's just like, you can never win. There's no way of winning, because once you get to the top, you become the privileged, right? So now you're the bad guy again. So in conclusion, I don't think anybody deserves more or less than someone else. I think everybody is deserving of the same thing as I do, and as my neighbor does, as white people or black people do. I think it's just finding a balance and trying to see this for what it really is. At the end of the day, I also want to remind you that these people who are on top, famous and successful, are also human beings. And us bullying them, I mean, they're not impervious to bullets. So they get hurt, and they have probably mental issues that we might not know. They're not as happy as we think they are. I think it's just a matter to reflect. And if you have any opinions on this, they're very welcome. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Do you think that we should have standards as to who should be successful or not? I mean, at the end of the day, there's people who shouldn't be like famous, like serial killers shouldn't be famous. And usually they are successful if they're famous because they have killed or done something so bad, so gruesomely bad that they are in the news or infamous. So I mean, that's like obviously, but if there's other people that you think shouldn't deserve fame, like why shouldn't they deserve fame, or how should we determine fame or success at this point? I want to hear about it. If not, just like, subscribe if you like this video. I have many other videos in my channel talking about society. I mainly do society analysis. I might do movies reviews because I really like rom-coms and I want to talk about rom-coms. And yeah, because that's what I love. And I'll see you later, guys. I'm sorry for all the noise. I know it was very noisy at times. It's just like it's chaotic in my house. There's 5 people, 2 dogs. It's a lot. And yep. So have a nice day. I hope you like this video, and I hope you like my makeup. I always say this, I hope you like my makeup. That took me not too much time to do. I'll link down below all the products that I use if you want to know. So that's it. Bye.